It is a well-known precept of Star Trek that when faced with a frontier, we should enter it boldly and explore without fear, and that's exactly what took place today, as the complex games apologist gave up his time and his energy for our first mission into Star Trek Adventures. He had 3 players. We had a large number of pre-generated characters to choose from, and we had an interesting mission, a mission which offered us physical threats, diplomatic threats, challenges to teamwork, challenges to our very health and well-being, mysteries to solve, ancient technology to use, and strange vistas to stand at and gaze in wonder. And what a session it was. It's not easy to play with people that you haven't played with before. It's fun, it's exciting, but there can be parts of it which you don't really know what you're going to get. It's kind of a risk. I was very happy that the Complex Games apologist was willing to take that risk with us, that he would open up this game that he's enjoying very much and share it with us, not really knowing how we might react to it, or how we might take the pre-generated characters, or what might happen during the amount of time we had available to play, and so on. I was glad that he did that for us. And then to be willing to go boldly into a frame of Star Trek that he is less familiar with, less comfortable with. We very much wanted to explore Star Trek Adventures through the filter of the original series, not the Next Generation, which is perhaps considered to be the default mode of play. That he would do that for us was, again, very much appreciated, allowing us to kind of just go with our instincts and play our conceptions or preconceptions of what Starfleet officers of that era were like. And we ended up having very many very Star Trek moments. And so I would have to say that this experiment was a huge success. I came away from the session feeling like I had been challenged in a way that a Starfleet officer, were they real, would be challenged. And that's very much a part of what I look for in a game. We had opportunities for role play. We had tremendous opportunities to interact with the system. Large parts of the system, which may or may not be important in any given session, definitely were brought out into the forefront. And the level of preparation demonstrated by the CGA was impressive. And I don't mean just in the volume of little tokens that were prepared. One of my fellow players, Jason, from the A Dark Age of Roleplay Game channel, find the link below and up there, has put together his recaps and reflections video. Go watch it, and he goes into great detail about all the effort made by the CGA to bring this to light. There's just a few things that I want to talk about, echoing some of the things that Jason said. So my video might actually be brief. Jason has already described how the session was put together, and so has the CGA in his own kind of promo video of it. So I won't go into great detail there, but for those who haven't seen those videos, we used Discord for audio, and we used Roll20 for the Complex Games Apologist visual assets for the game. And the reason why we needed these visual assets was, well, 1, to facilitate learning, 2, to obviate the need to have constant discussion about what do I do now and how do I do it, so that you could teach yourself how to play really as you are role-playing, and that was great. But primarily, number 3, the main reason that the main takeaway that I had was that it gives that around the table feel. So we weren't using Roll20 for miniatures and tactical maps. We were using it for stirring visuals or wallpapers of the interiors or exteriors of the ship, space, that sort of thing, and information about talents that characters were using, or skills or equipment, and common operations like sensor checks and using the transporter and things like that, so that we could see what a normal roll would look like and what kind of challenges would be faced, so that we could make good decisions as if we had comfort with the game, as if there were books open around us, as if we had the physical assets that you might have, such as counters for momentum and counters for threat and that sort of thing. All of that stuff was represented on the screen by the various tools presented by Roll20. I don't find it necessary in the way that I play online to delve into Roll20, but taking the time and effort, and with the creative flair that the CGA showed in presenting all of these assets, it made the experience a lot of fun. I often felt like I was sitting around the table with a bunch of people that, maybe I'd met in a game store or something, and we'd all gotten together for the first time to play a game that we were all interested in. It was that kind of experience. All of these representations on the screen helped bring us closer. Also, the audio in Discord is definitely superior to what I've been experiencing in Hangouts, especially when two people end up speaking at the same time. Now, not all the connections to Discord's audio were great or great all the time, but the audio in general was simply superior. There's quite a few times where we were both excited, or two or three people were excited and wanting to talk at the same time, and you could still understand what was being said. So I'll definitely consider that in the future. The scenario itself, we didn't have a lot of time. We had less than 3 hours to play. And there were a lot of questions, I think, that we had about the system. There were a lot of things that we wanted to be able to try, and I was very pleased with how many different aspects of the system came into play, and came into play very naturally, and how all of these different eventualities, all these different system needs, appeared to have been anticipated by the complex games apologists because of all the different assets were there. Every different type of role that ended up being created had some kind of a flashcard that would appear on the screen about how that would be conducted. So that was very handy. We had a lot of different pre-gens, maybe 8 different pre-gens for us to select from. And so there would be no way to predict who would be picked, or which among them would be picked. So we had a very interesting crew. The character that I ended up playing was suited for an executive officer position. Not really ready to be captain yet, but definitely moving in that direction. We had a very talented technical specialist who was the operations manager, and we had a security specialist who also had background in engineering. So we had a pretty good mix of skills that allowed for very interesting challenges and different interplay between the 3 characters in different situations. Lots of opportunities for teamwork, lots of opportunities for bolstering each other's abilities and areas of interest, and lots of physical threats, mental challenges like mysteries or diplomatic or intrigue related tasks and challenges. We had simple tasks, we had complex tasks, we had opposed tasks, we had extended tasks, we had all kinds of different things going on. And in the background, the characters were doing what you want the characters to do in Star Trek. And this is where I was really impressed, because here we have a bunch of not exactly strangers, but not exactly friends kind of thing. We have a bunch of people who all want to play a game. And the CGA put in a ton of work developing these assets. Now, of course, that work is going to continue to pay off for him, because most of those assets can be reused. Things like this scene introductory card are both functional and inspiring. So everything about it was a success. It felt very much like we were sitting around a table, even though that's really hard to do in Hangouts. The audio helped, the visuals helped. And we experienced what you want out of a good Star Trek episode, including the humor. So it's a win all the way around. Downsides, I think at least 2 of us went into Roll20 thinking, wow, I hope this isn't a problem, which is not a great way to approach something new. So I tried not to have that attitude, but there were times, like we were figuring out how the dice roller worked, where I really wished I could just pick up the dice which were right in front of me and roll them. And I was given that option, but I stuck with the die roller. And I'm glad I did, because there are a few times where it revealed results in a very quick and dramatic fashion. That was very exciting, without me having to fumble around on my desk or on my keyboard looking for dice that had been hidden and that sort of thing. So I was glad that I was able to shelve that apprehension. In terms of the quality of role play, it very much felt, as I've said a couple of times in this video already, like playing with a new group of people. So there was an awful lot of social exploration. Which one of us is the most aggressive in scenes? Which one of us speaks more often? Or which one of us is involving other characters more often? Which one of us is delving most deeply into their character and pulling stuff up and seeing how it works and that kind of stuff? We were feeling each other out. So there were moments of hesitation. There were moments of, if we knew our characters better, if we knew each other better, if we knew the system better, would we reach a different decision? There's a few of those things, and our game master guided us through that quite nicely, able to have a more elevated position down on those three perspectives and just kind of push in the right way that you're supposed to do to get us over that hump and back into making decisions. So I appreciated that, because again, that's not easy, especially when you're with a new group and you're trying to show them a new system. Where do you go? Do you go toward the experience of the one-shot, or do you go toward teaching the system? And I liked how we handled that. So we ended up with probably a larger ratio of talking about decisions and actions than role-playing through decisions and actions. But as we went along, there were scenes that grabbed us. So I don't feel that we gradually role-played more and more as we got used to each other and the environment. I feel like there were very specific scenes which grabbed us, and we role-played. And then eventually, the rubber had to meet the road. Eventually, the system had to be invoked. It was. We talked about it or didn't talk about it. Sometimes we just went with it and continued to role play, and sometimes it formed the basis of what would become a new scene, or it formed the basis of understanding of our characters and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of meat in the system for getting a lot of deep role play. There will be frequent moments where everything stops and the system has to be accessed. And people who play Fantasy Flight games, Star Wars, will be very used to this and understand that once you get used to it, the impact of that on roleplay is gradually and decreased to the point where it no longer matters. So that's really the end of my commentary on this particular session. I had a lot of fun. I'm about to start running the game myself and have just finished doing character creation with my own crew. And one of the most interesting comments that come out of it was, this was the hardest or most challenging type of character creation I've ever undertaken. ... But the most fun. And we had gone through the life path creation. So that was interesting to me. I love life paths, and I find them, the flow of them to be quite satisfying. It was interesting to see someone do them for the first time and find it hard, but then really like what they got at the end. So there are many things that are making me look forward to taking this game out and taking it for a spin, and then after that, trying Conan or the Mutant Chronicles. So thanks to the Complex Game Apologists, thanks to Jason, thanks to Aloy for playing with us, our 3 crew members, and it's quite possible you'll hear us talk about Star Trek Adventures again.